Hi guys, Charlie Wall here on a Friday with you, answering a question of the week. And this week I've had a wonderful question from a wonderful woman who is struggling with what sounds like chronic anxiety. And what she's saying here is that she feels very heavy in her thinking, in her mind, has thoughts upon thoughts upon thoughts, can't seem to go a day without having this heavy thinking. And what she describes is planning her day. She's talking about time, having this issue around time, everything in slots, and just not having enough hours in the day. And I thought this would be a good question to speak to because it really reminded me of when I was in my chronic anxiety. One of the things that I used to plan and structure my day was around hourly slots. So time was a really big deal for me in my micromanaging of my anxiety. Now, I didn't realize that I was doing this. I didn't realize that this was a thing. So when this lady wrote to me and said about the time thing, it really took me back, and I was reminded of, yeah, when I used to run my other business, my boot camp business, and a single mother, and I used to look after my dad. My day was constantly in like hour slots. So I'd get up at 5 and I'd be at boot camp by 6, and then I'd finish that at 7, and I'd get my coffee by 7:15, and I'd get home by 7:30. Zach would go off to school, and I'd start work with my PT at 8, and my day would literally be around these hourly slots, and if anything took me out of that hourly slot, and that's what I'm picking up from this woman who's asked the question, if anything took me away from that hourly slot, I became, and I remember it, I remember that feeling of chronic anxiety, chronic panic, chronic urgency, to the point where mine got so bad that I'd even schedule in a sleep at 1 o'clock, and I had to have this sleep at 1 o'clock. So I was so exhausted all the time because I was so anxious all the time, which means my body was in flight or fright continually. And I'm guessing from the woman that's asked me the question, which is, how to help her settle her mind. And I just want to explain to you and anyone else listening that has the same issue around time, that I was in constant flight or fright. And what I mean by that is, like, in the olden days, we have an amazing stress response which is activated when we're meant to be running away from a saber-toothed tiger or some sort of life threatening danger. And that system is activated every time we have a stressful thought. It's not meant to be activated for that. It's meant to be activated for life and death situations. But it's activated, um, unfortunately, because of a misunderstanding about our thinking. So those of us that have anxious thinking are always kind of forward planning. We're either in the past thinking about the past, or we're in the future thinking about the future. We're never in the present. So for me, I was constantly in flight or fright, meaning I had adrenaline and noradrenaline, cortisol surging through my body. And if anything tipped me over the edge, it would literally make me kind of break down. And this is what this lady's saying. She's struggling with her mind. She's waking up every day and it just feels like this sort of barrage of thinking coming in, and this time slot which she can't seem to get out of. And if anything deviates from this time slot that she's created, then it puts her over the edge, and she feels like she's tearful and crying and worried about potential diagnosis. And then the fear is that she's going to have her children taken away. Now, this is what I wanted to speak about, because often when we have this sort of chronic anxiety and we don't really know what's going on, we don't know that we are innocently creating this feeling of stress by paying attention to lots of forward thinking thoughts. Then we create more movies, for want of a better word, about potential outcomes, and it's always worst case scenario, i.e., I'm going to end up in a mental institution and someone's going to take my kids away from me. Now, what's going on here, guys, and for this lovely lady that's written me this question, is that we haven't understood. No one said to you before that you're not broken. No one said to you before that what you're experiencing is thought in a moment, and that thought comes in and goes out all day long, all day long. But no one's given us the instructor's manual. No one sat us down until now, because I discovered this the truth, the universal truth about all humans. I discovered very luckily and by pure fate or divine intervention just after my father died, which completely changed my experience of anxiety, of depression, of suicidal ideation, of addictions, of habits. It completely changed my relationship with my family who'd been I'd had historically difficult relationships with them. So it's a bit like you have an old map. If you remember, like if you're as old as me, then when we used to go driving, so I might used to have to drive from, say, Colchester to Derby when I went to university, and I'd have a map and I'd have an old road map. So if you've still got one of these old road maps that would get you like from Colchester to Derby, say, and you're using it now, it's going to be really crumpled up. It's not going to have the right roads in there still, and you might get very lost. Now, you have the ability, of course, to use your mind and say, I want to ask someone for directions and get there. But ultimately, what you need is an updated map. Now, most of us have a Google map on our phone or an thing or an Android thing or whatever we've got now. What are they called? Sat navs, a sat nav, whatever, like the modern day sat navs. So you tend to have an updated manual of a roadmap of how to get from A to B. And what we've got now is an updated instruction manual for your human mind, which is self-correcting. If you understand the nature of human beings, the nature of thought, and the fact that you have something incredible that's got your back. If you understand that you just need to update your manual, that you just need to keep searching in this direction, keep listening to me or any of my colleagues, and we can help you understand how thought creates feeling, and they're two sides of the same coin, but that most of us live in a thought created reality which is made up. It's basically like you're having a nightmare when you're awake, so we call them daymares. So we create movies, we create dreams, we create fantasies. Have you ever been in a place where you've seen someone just do this? Just stare out. You might be talking to them and you can see that you've lost them. We had a guest called Dickin Bettinger, who some of you may know, some of you may not know, but he came and talked to my group this week, and he talked about this. His grandchildren used to call him the Space Cadet, because he would literally just stare out. He was so lost in thought. And if you've ever had that experience, you'll know that you're lost in a world of thought. There's a movie being created. And because if you've got anxiety, you're constantly planning the future, worrying about the future, creating outcomes about your life, usually with the worst case scenario. You're creating that through thought, through a movie. You're having a daymare, but not realizing that it's being made up by you in this moment. Once you know that, you can see that all thoughts moving through you, we're all doing that. That's what's universally true of all humans, not just you. There's nothing wrong with you. You might have experienced trauma in your life like me, But that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It never means there's something wrong with you. You can create the illusion that there's something wrong with you because you're paying attention to your thinking, which is telling you there's something wrong with you. And again, everyone's doing that. Every human being is doing that. And you innocently believe it. And if you have that as your core belief that there's something wrong with me, then that's what you'll see. That's what we create. That's the power that you have to create your reality. It is through thought that reality is created, but thought is not real. So anyone who's feeling that kind of anxiety, urgency, worry, you've got conditions around timing and what you have to get done. Remember that you are making that up. I used to make up my own time frame around my day, every single day, minute by minute by minute, until I went to bed, wake up, go to bed. I even woke up and went to bed at the same time every day, and if I didn't, I got anxious about that. So I would get anxious if I didn't wake up at 5, anxious if I didn't go to sleep at 1, anxious if I wasn't in bed by 10. And everything in between was completely structured around time because I thought that was keeping me safe. I didn't know that I was creating more and more anxiety for myself by putting in imaginary, arbitrary timelines to my day and then feeling anxious, setting off my stress response, activating that system, which is brilliant, but not meant to be activated with me thinking about all these things that I've got to do. If you know that when I feel urgent, when I feel constricted, if I feel heavy, if I feel like I'm uncomfortable, that's your body's way of trying to wake you up to tell you that you're paying attention to a daymare, to a shitty committee in your head that isn't taking you anywhere good other than stress, inflammation, worry, all of that stuff. And potentially what that used to lead me to was my habits of behaviour. And often people come to me because they're eating too much, or they're starving, or they're drinking too much, or whatever it is that they might be doing. So please know that there's nothing wrong with you, that you're innocently creating this. You don't know you're doing it. It's a misunderstanding of how your experience is being created through thought. Your brain is a very powerful machine, a prediction machine as well. So once we understand about thought, once we understand about neuroscience, life becomes a lot easier. And I'm proof that that's the case. And yeah, there is hope. That's what I want you to know. There is hope. Anyway, I talk more about this in my free group. If you're not in that, come on over into that. I'll put the link in the group. In my circle membership, I talk about this much more, and we have group coaching, one-to-one with me, obviously, and I've got an 8-week freedom program which will be coming up very soon. So I've got to go. I've got someone else to talk to very shortly. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know if you heard anything in that, and if you have a question you want me to speak to, please write to me on Facebook or email me or wherever. Take care. See you soon. Lots of love.